Yeah.
The next game has begun.
And this also marks Magnus's first deficit in, well, I don't know if just chess.com history, but certainly in the GM Blitz battles. He dominated Tigran Petrosian 21-4, was never in any danger there. But he is facing a much stiffer test in Sasha Grischuk and faces a 1-0 deficit after just one game. Sasha Grischuk flexing his chess 960 muscles.
Yeah, he's 4-0 when it comes to chess 960, and 4-0 for a reason. Do we prefer the big head version? I love seeing these guys. These are, have you ever thought online chess would bring it to your living room or to your IKEA kitchen, as it looks like Magnus Carlsen has the same cabinets that I do in my kitchen?
Well, it means you might have good taste. The world champion at chess might also be a world champion
Or
shopper.
it just tells you IKEA is that much closer to taking over the world than the rest of us realize.
That's probably more like it.
So we have a ready here. What's going on? This is right up Magnus's alley. A little bit of messy stuff, but Grischuk from the school of Russia, he never has issues with unorthodox positions like that. He's not a theory monkey in the sense that he really wants to challenge you in the main lines all the time.
Yeah, and this actually is a decently well-known, but not a super main line, not like a sharp Sicilian knight or anything like that. And here he goes b5. Of course, Magnus swings that queen over to a1. Yeah. He liked what Grischuk did in the last game, right, with that queen and bishop over there in the long diagonal. But Grischuk he gave a little quizzical look there, but he seems to be at home in this position.
Absolutely, and National Master Gargoyle Blaster in the chess.com chat gives rook a2 an exclam, maybe double exclam. There's nothing like creating an opportunity for a battery by putting your rook on the a2 square. That's a ton of fun. Who's better here, really? Let's focus on some actual X's and O's. White's a little bit better, kind of typical to be a little bit better at this point in these ready setups. The tension on the queen side will tell the story. At some point, we will have a break in the action here, and some open files will be created. One of the things you'll notice strong players do, and this is a good take home for everybody, is they're not quick to capture. They build on tension, like water building up on a dam. Often you want your opponent to be doing the capturing to open up files for yourself. Okay, right as I say that, he does it, but it's only because he sees likely a concrete opportunity to completely grab the file. Making trades and opening up lines should only be done if you're sure you're the one who can grip them first.
Yeah, and here, of course, Magnus can go rook a to c2, but I mean, Sasha's still solid with rook to c8, right?
Yeah, so he'll offer a big simplification on the c file.
And Magnus has to be a bit better just because his bishop on d4 is extremely well placed. Not to mention that the bishop on h7 is locked out for at least the near future. And what Magnus does have to be careful about, though, is his pawn on a3. That bishop on e7 is spying on the pawn on a3, and it's not like Magnus can really push those pawns on the queen side. So, I think the position is slightly better for White, probably, but nothing real.
For my students, I always called this a ninja bishop because it's very sneaky. It's hidden away, but also attacking things from across the board, and very easy to get caught up in tactics and forget, oh, my a3 pawn is under fire. So really good point there, Mr. Hess. We just got a tweet from Fiona. There's from Fiona, Stell, and Tony, who says there's worse ways to follow the Blitz battle than on the beach, tweeting a live picture of herself on the beach watching the game on a laptop. I could agree. I wish I was providing commentary from the beach right now.
Yeah, why didn't we do that?
I'm a little jealous. Okay, we'll fit that into the budget next time. But fun stuff. Everybody getting involved, and cannot wait for the strongest Blitz match ever to just continue to heat up. That's what this is you are watching. Never before have players of this strength played in this sort of setting.
And Dan, I have a question for you. Is that a lightsaber behind Grischuk's head? Like, what is that? It looks like he can just rip it off the ceiling and use it to fight.
I think he was locked into a Soviet interrogation room. If he doesn't win this match, he may not get out. Just kidding, Vladimir. Okay, no, we have fans for both sides. I'm not sure who we have more fans of. A huge Russian community on chess.com. Yaroslav Dukozov in the chat. Go Grischuk. Obviously, Magnus Carlsen has more fans around the world than probably any professional chess player.
Yeah.
He's better here. And notice the struggle here for black, everybody, is dealing with this still very annoying battery. Probably a move like knight e8 to guard the pawn and then maybe offer another simplification. It's one of those positions where it's not wimpy chess. Black just needs to kind of simplify White's pressure. because the more white's pieces come off the board, probably the easier this position is to play.
Yeah, and a big issue is queen c2 would love to be played by black, but knight d4 not only hits the queen and covers e2 and b3 and also attacks b5. That's one of the better knights you'll ever see.
Yeah, boomtown. That would be nice. So Grischuk had to pause and take note of that point. But he finds way to eye in on the a3 pawn, right? We've now seen the a pawn you talked about earlier coming under fire. That's a little irritating. If you're white, you don't want to have to play bishop b2. Okay, Magnus says I'm not going to play bishop b2. I have a4.
Yeah, and a problem for black still is this silly bishop on h7. It's really uncomfortable, and it actually prevents your king from escaping, so any check on the back rank could be quite difficult to deal with. And at some point, Grischuk can consider making the move queen to a3. Of course, not now. That will just lose a pawn. But if he captures on a4 first and then try to trade the queens on a3, well, he might be a happy camper in the ending. So for Grischuk, well, first I'm going to stop saying happy camper because I've said it like 3 times today. But more importantly for Grischuk, now he's closed down the queen side. And, okay, Magnus is trying to get this bishop back in the game, maybe via e3 and then pawn to d4. But I'm not really seeing too many weaknesses in Grischuk's position.
I agree. That's one of the things people should remember when they have less space and it seems like your opponent is gripping. How many permanent weaknesses do you have, right? If we go back even to let's say this position here, black had less space, black was fighting to simplify, but how many positional fingers, I was going to say, how many positional weaknesses can you count on your fingers? Not many at all, right?
Yeah.
So really, black was only a little bit worse based on activity. That's a temporary weakness, and if you can simplify the position, you know, now you look at it and neither side really has any long-term weaknesses here. Maybe this A pawn is something you have to worry about if you're Grischuk. Obviously, if the queens came off, you might quickly see a run and rush over here to the A pawn. So that's something Grischuk will look out for along with his clock. Right now, I think if I was going to list the biggest advantage in the position, it would be the time.
Yeah, and a minute advantage is huge in blitz. And I think you made an extremely important point. The pawn on a5 is worse than the pawn on b3. It's easier to attack. The pawn on b3 is actually very difficult to go after. And here we see Magnus is really improving his position because if that queen comes to e5, it can threaten to go to b8. And like you said, the pawn on a5 is a big target. And again, that bishop on h7 is such a bad piece.
Yeah, it's difficult to see a concrete plan right now for how Magnus is gonna outplay this position. I guess we just are also used to Magnus winning these close to equal positions. Here's a question: do I want to play e3 with ideas of d4 at some point opening this bishop, or do you see there being more negative drawbacks to e3?
I definitely think there are more drawbacks, and the reason why is that bishop on g6 will breathe new life coming to c2 at a really annoying moment. An opportune time to hit that b3 pawn might be difficult for white to deal with. So instead, I think he's just going to, he being Magnus, just going to keep Grischuk at bay, maybe try to expand the king side a little with h3, g4. You've got all the time in the world, which is really annoying if you're the player with the black pieces. So what can Grischuk even do here? Maybe king h7, but that's not a move with a purpose.
Very good point. That's why he's a grandmaster and I'm not, everybody. E3 and D4 would be a very dangerous drawback. You don't want to create avenues into your weakness, as we just spent all this time highlighting that A4 is more of a problem than B3. So Sam Thompson on Twitter says, looks like Magnus traded too early on B5, talking about the position from a few moves ago. I'm not exactly sure.
Look at Magnus.
He thinks based on my whole advice about the tension with the pawns, maybe Magnus did trade too early, thinking he was going to grip the file and ended up just creating an opportunity for the pieces to simplify. So maybe Sam Thompson is right. I still think white's a little better here. Ooh, look at that. We've missed the queen entry into c2, and what's about to happen?
Well, now this b3 pawn is a clear target. If you go knight d4, well, I can just leave my queen either on a2 or b2 or somewhere along the way, and it could create some problems for white.
I think he's going to go for it anyway and maybe risk the e3 move we talked about.
Okay, this is smart square. Now there's no knight c6, which would have been really annoying after in some variations of queen b2 rather.
Phenomenal move, because it also stops my e3 idea.
Yes.
So Grischuk showing that he's not going to be outplayed in these tiny advantage positions.
Here.
I think knight d7 is just going to be a fancy trade, though.
No, knight c5, right? Knight c5 might be knight b5 by white,
Magnus,
which is funny because it looks like it just picks up b3, but you have some problems with the knight on c5.
Yeah.
Actually, it's still a good move. Knight c5 looks very good here.
If knight c5, knight b5, queen
C2.
moves to c2, keeps an eye on the knight. I agree that it looks unclear. You know, we might be about to see an all-in attack here on the king side, and if my eyes don't deceive me, the world's champion might be about to go down 2-0, or is he about to take a perpetual?
Well, I'm actually not sure if after knight d4, if perhaps black should queen b2 now and just try to go after this b3 pawn. I don't see a good knight discovery after queen b2, and this could be a very big problem for Magnus.
I agree, and I'm wondering if there's opportunities on the king side to get counterplay. Knight to c6 runs into knight takes b3.
Or knight takes d3 even, right? Both pawns are hanging because there's a pin on this e2 pawn. So g4 doesn't work because his bishop takes d3 in that case. So unfortunately for Magnus, his kind of pawn storm on the king side is a move too slow.
Yeah, Magnus struggling here. The time is getting closer to equal. Now as we see, Magnus nearly under a minute, Grischuk already under a minute. A big turnaround that would be, right, after getting the first win in Chess 960 to win as black in the first classical game. This would be a huge turnaround, and not a good start for the world champion.
Yeah, and now bishop takes d3 looks like a very good move. And after there's no knight discovery, so it's bishop e4 check first, and then I can move my knight how I please. So bishop takes d3 here looks like it just scoops up a pawn and with it a winning position.
I agree, and looks like we're headed toward a position that's winning for black. And in fact, our teammate here letting us know that the engines think the position is already winning, minus 2.7 at this point after the move g4. So it's a matter of technique, as they say in Mother Russia right now for Grischuk, and he should be able to do just he takes. I think that's the best move.
And that's probably the move that Magnus missed, queen c2, just protecting the knight on c5. Knight e1, forking the bishop, and the queen doesn't work because I bishop e4 check first, an intermezzo, then I can move my queen to c3 with a winning endgame. So here Magnus is definitely going down.
What about knight back to d4? Okay, so you said the intermezzo of bishop e4 check, that's the key.
Yes.
So he goes for it, but I think we'll see the check as you described, and after king moves,
queen c3 looks good enough. Now, even sometimes knight d3 check could be quite annoying, but just queen c3 played simple. Simple chess is often the best chess, and queen c3.
It's interesting though. If you trade, I mean, are you increasing my drawing chances?
Well, I'm just gonna go f6 and e5. That's my idea for. And here comes f6.
F6 and e5. You're in tune right now with the Super GM 2800 Grischuk. So now, what is Carlsen going to do? He goes for g5 himself, desperately hoping to create counterplay, but maybe now time to just get those ladies off the board, strike with e5, go on to win the endgame as soon as the b3 pawn falls.
Grischuk has to be a bit careful at his time. I know there's a 2-second increment, so he's not too worried. Oh, this one's a piece. Queen takes d4. Oh, no, it doesn't. This is the trick. Oh, yes, it actually does. Sorry.
It would have.
Yeah, it would have because his knight d2 check forks it on the end. I mean, just crazy variation.
It would have been a total mess, but I don't think Grischuk could calculate
queen c5
it that
check
fast.
And okay,
but okay, so now he's going for queen e3 check.
He's going to mate him. Not only is he just winning by position, but
he's going to mate him. Yeah, queen e3 check followed by knight to c1, I think will be what we see.
But watch out for g6 check by white, right? That will be a big issue.
That would be a problem. The one way for Carlsen to
he'll
save
take on
the
h4
position.
with check. Okay, or no?
No, okay, he will. He's just being a good Russian schoolboy. Russian schoolboys know to always repeat as soon as you can. Magnus is about to throw in the towel. I can see by his body language.
The knight on b3 is hanging.
We have our first. We have our first mate on the board of the day. Magnus gets his bell rung. We don't miss an opportunity to do it ourselves. Always ring that bell anytime someone gets checkmated. And Grischuk jumps out to a 2-0 lead. It's time for them to rematch, and the players should do that.
Yeah, so, I mean, really, Grischuk with a very strong showing in the first two games.
Absolutely.